Fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Just like it was about 4 months ago in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 Championship Game in football, buckle up for another tough scene tonight in Sin City as it's going to be the championship game of the Pac-12 tournament and also the final game in Pac-12 basketball history. Now, we all know that these conference realignment moves that we are consistently seeing come down to football and the money that that sport generates. And just like it was 11 years ago when the original Big East broke up and lost some of its basketball tradition and history, we're set to bid farewell to the Conference of Champions, which has produced some of college basketball's best moments, some of their best players, and some of the best rivalries that the sport of college basketball has ever seen. And I'm going to talk about some of them. And the ones that I omit, I know there's plenty of fan bases out there that might be upset about that. But trust me, it's not that you were forgotten because there's so much history when you think about the Conference of Champions. And when you talk about Pac 12 basketball, you cannot, and I mean not, glance over the domination of UCLA under former head coach John Wooden and the dynasty that he created there at Westwood. And then you just think about some of the great players that came through UCLA's program under John Wooden. Lou Alcindor, of course, known now as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, Jamal Wilkes, Marcus Johnson, just to name a few. And then the UCLA tradition that continued after Reggie Miller, Baron Davis, the O'Bannon brothers, and so many more. You think about Arizona and how the Wildcats became a national powerhouse under former head coach Lute Olson, and you think about some of the talent that played for him in Tucson, and you think about his success there, which included a national championship in 1997, as well as four appearances in the Final Four. The great Damon Stoudemire, one of the greatest point guards in Pac-10, Pac-12 history. Sean Elliott, Gilbert Arenas, just to name a few of the great players that played for the Wildcats. Staying within the state of Arizona, the scoring ability of an Eddie House at Arizona State. You think about James Harden before he became the bearded one. He played collegiately at Arizona State. A pair of Bay Area point guards that went on to have success in the NBA and also become Hall of Famers. And I'm talking about Gary Payton at Oregon State and, of course, Jason Kidd at Cal. And when I think about Jay Kidd at Cal, I always think about that 1993 NCAA tournament where Cal upset Duke in the second round at the Rosemont Horizon to end Duke's chances of three-peating as national champions. And then you think about 1997. I talked about Lute Olson. His Arizona team that year became the first and only team in NCAA tournament history to knock off three number one seeds as they went on to win the national championship. We saw Arizona that year as a fourth seed in the South knock out Kansas in the Sweet 16. They beat North Carolina in the national semifinal that year at the Hoosier Dome. And then the epic with Kentucky in overtime as Kentucky was looking to repeat as national champions, but Arizona knocked them off. Getting back to some of these great players that have come out of the Pac-12 before becoming one of the Splash Brothers for the Golden State Warriors. We remember what Klay Thompson was able to do at Washington State. The O'Bannon brothers at UCLA, they were a part of the last national champion for the Bruins back in 1995. Stanford's run to the Final Four in 1998 with the likes of Arthur Lee, Chris Weems, Pete Sauer, and Mark Matson on that team, just to name a few. Then, the resurgence of UCLA under former head coach Ben Howland, which resulted in three straight Final Four trips for the Bruins. The likes of Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook, Jordan Farmar, Drew Holiday, Aaron Aflalo. some of the guys that he was able to recruit to UCLA. And then, getting back to the UCLA dominance under the late great John Wooden, it was basically UCLA against everybody else. But then going forward, when Lute Olson came to Arizona, the rivalry between UCLA and Arizona, as they were constantly battling for a top spot, and then the Pac-10, and then Steve Lavin's Bruins in the late '90s and early 2000s. They always seemed like they were on the bubble. Then you think about the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers of the 1980s, and of course, when you think about Showtime, you think about Magic Johnson. And I talked about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar being a part of those Lakers, Jamal Wilkes as well for a couple of championships with the Lakers in the early 1980s. But then another pair of guys, pair of quality wing guys for the Showtime Lakers in those days found themselves on the Lakers coming from the Pac-10. Byron Scott at Arizona State, AC Green at Oregon State. Then you think about the great Detlef Shrimp at Washington, Brandon Roy at Washington playing under, Lorenzo Romar. And for some time, Lorenzo Romar had a solid program there in Seattle. The likes of Casey Jacobson and Josh Childress at Stanford, Jason Capono at UCLA, Sam Clancy helping USC make the Elite Eight back in 2001. You thought about, I talked about Lorenzo Romar's run at Washington. How about the solid run that Ernie Kent had for a while at Oregon, which included the Ducks getting to the Elite Eight back in 2002 with the likes of Luke Ridenour and Luke Jackson. And it's unfortunate that this is it for for this version of the Pac-12, and it's a crying shame because I look at it and there's just so much tradition there. And again, this is and it was the conference of champions, because it wasn't just a football thing, it wasn't just a basketball thing for the Pac-12. You think about some of the solid women's basketball programs that came out of this conference. You think about the great softball programs that they came out of this conference, the great baseball programs like your USC's, like your Stanfords that came out of this conference. We saw Oregon State, go back to back in the College World Series about 15 years ago, give or take. All right. You think about the swimming and all the Olympic sports, okay, from this great league that are going to be shifting their focus right now. But, getting back to basketball here, which is the meat of this subject, basketball wise, I do believe as this conference is breaking up, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, should have success in the Big 12. And I wish I could say the same for Stanford and Cal in the ACC. I really thought it was a reach and a money grab, a real money grab for them heading east. But you know what? It is what it is at this point. And then, the new additions to the Big Ten, courtesy of the Pac-12. Let's see how they adjust to things basketball wise. But nonetheless, you look at this final indoctrination of the Pac-12 basketball tournament. Of course, unfortunately, it was a down year for the Pacific 12. UCLA being knocked out in the quarters by Oregon, and of course, it was just fitting for a bad year for the Bruins. Oregon, getting the best of Arizona last night in the semis. And it's going to be Oregon and Colorado getting it on for the last Pac 12 championship. And it's one of those, we saw football wise, we saw Oregon get to the Pac 12 championship game before they lost to Washington. But maybe their basketball program under head coach Dana Altman can send the Ducks out as a winner in possession of that last Pac 12 championship trophy. So it's one of those where it'll be celebratory for the winner tonight, in my opinion. But I think at the end of the day, it's still going to be bittersweet. So many great memories. I talked about it football wise a couple of months ago. Now, of course, I'm focusing on the basketball aspect, but so many great memories from the conference of champions. And it's a darn shame that it's got to come to an end like this. Once again, football rules the roost. It's all about, the greenback. And it's unfortunate because bad leadership from the Pac 12 for quite some time is what has resulted in what we're seeing right now and what I'm talking about right now. But nonetheless, it's the end of an era as we bid farewell to the Pac 12. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.